More Money Show with Steve Moore on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
We're back, folks. This is the More Money Show. Thank you so much for tuning in, and I hope you're having a wonderful weekend. So, one of the people that I turn to when I want to talk about energy and environment issues is Robert Bryce, who is an expert on these policies. He is formerly the energy analyst at the great Manhattan Institute. He has a great podcast that he does where I learn a lot listening to him about what's happening with energy. And as soon as I saw the big headline this week about Bill Gates, basically saying, hey, climate change is not going to be the end of the world, I immediately thought of Robert because he's been writing on energy and environmental issues for so long. And, Robert, thanks so much for joining, this afternoon.
Always happy to talk to you, Steve.
So, Robert, first of all, how do people get your podcast?
Well, actually, my podcast is now dormant. My Substack, robertbryce.substack.com. That's where I'm writing almost all the time now.
Say that again. What is it again?
robertbryce.substack.com.
And you do that weekly?
I'm publishing about 6 to 8 articles a month on Substack now.
Got it. Okay, so almost twice a week. So go to Robert's Substack. I read it all the time, and I always find amazing information there. Okay, so tell me, what is your reaction to Bill Gates, who probably has put more money into the climate change movement of anyone on the planet, and now he is saying that maybe he was wrong, and maybe that the end is not near.
It is remarkable. I guess my first reaction, Steve, was, well, one, what took you so damn long? But second, it was, thank goodness, thank God, there is another humanist voice on the energy front. And the things, it's interesting to see how, the legacy media and Bill McKibben and the usual suspects are saying, oh, don't listen to Gates.
They're beating him up. Yeah. He's
beating him up for even daring to say what is obviously true, which is we're not facing a catastrophe. This isn't an extinction event. And the part that, to me, Stephen, his essay, I thought, on gatesnotes.com was very well reasoned. It was probably a couple thousand words.
Right.
But at the conclusion was key, where he said, essentially, we have to adopt a humanist approach to this. And I thought,
by the way, hold on. What does that mean, a humanist approach?
Well, I'll read this. I think it's important to just read what he said. He said, we should be prioritizing the things that have the greatest impact on human welfare. Yes, brother. Amen.
Yes.
It's the best way to ensure that everyone gets a chance to live a healthy and productive life, no matter where they're born and no matter what kind of climate they're born into. I love it, too. And I thought, well, what does that mean to me? As I read that, it means hydrocarbons. They need hydrocarbons. They don't they need propane in particular to stop this insane air pollution that's a plague in the developing world that's killing millions of women and girls every year.
Right. So this is such an important point because, as you know, I've learned a lot of this from you, that the biggest problem in terms of, early death and malnutrition and all of the terrible thing, the disease, is that in these poor countries, they lack millions and millions of people still lack reliable electric power in the year 2025 and still lack clean drinking water. And I've always thought, look, for 1/100th of the cost we spend on climate change, we could help clean the water for these, African nations and some of the Asian nations, and we can provide them. I mean, I read a statistic that there are close to 1 billion people who still don't have reliable electricity. Well, how can you have a prosperity if you don't have electric power?
Well, of course, and this is one of the keys. And those numbers, depending on whose numbers you're using, but it's roughly 1 billion people. And then further, you have roughly 3 billion people in the world who are using less electricity than what's consumed by an average kitchen refrigerator in the United States.
That's amazing. Wait, hold on. Say that again. That's an amazing statistic.
There are roughly 3 billion people in the world today who live in places where per capita electricity use, Steve, is less than what's consumed by a kitchen refrigerator in the United States. That is less than.
And is that because? Sorry to interrupt, but is that because they just don't have enough electric power?
Well, it's, what is poor countries are plagued by what? Poverty. They don't, you've got to have injections of capital to make a grid. And when you have corruption, grids don't function well. But let's set electricity aside for a moment, Steve, and just to reinforce what Gates said about we should be focusing on humanism. We should be humanists and be looking at what can provide the greatest benefit. So I mentioned air pollution. These are the numbers that still, no matter how many times, and I talked about this in a lecture I gave in London earlier this year. Today, indoor air pollution kills more people. Indoor air pollution from using poor quality cooking fuels kills more people than AIDS, HIV, cholera, malaria, and tuberculosis combined. And
so is that because
these anti-humanists, these Sierra Clubbers and NRDC, and these anti-humanists from on the extreme left, these climate catastrophists saying, "Oh, we shouldn't allow them to use hydrocarbons." I mean, it's outrageous.
It really is, and it is inhumane because there was a good chart that was just put out this week in response to echo essentially what Bill Gates was saying, that if you look, folks, at the amount of electricity that a country uses, it's highly, highly correlated with the economic growth. And so you need electric power to be able to grow your economy and to become a richer nation. And it's been I think, despicable that we have the United Nations, the IMF, all these globalist institutions that go into these poor countries and say, "Oh no, don't burn coal, don't use natural gas, don't use oil." And I think I read this from you or someone who's an expert on this. A lot of these countries are still using burning of wood, which is like the worst thing you can do for the environment.
It's exactly right, Steve. And this attitude is truly reprehensible. And the world, and the World Bank has been part of this as well. That they're saying, "Oh, we're going to keep encouraging these dirt poor countries in Africa to use renewables." But the numbers are the 3.2, not my numbers, the numbers. World Health Organization data. Household air pollution today is killing roughly 3.2 million people every year, and most of those are women and girls. So to put that in perspective, about 7 million people died from COVID. So roughly every 27 months, as many people are dying from indoor air pollution as died from COVID, and we shut the world down because of COVID.
So we've just got a couple minutes left. I'm talking to Robert Bryce, and he is amazing on this stuff. You had a great report that we put in our hotline this week about how many many communities are saying, no, we don't want solar panels all over our, wilderness and even with windmills. So there's almost a strike going on, a revolt against green energy in many areas of the country and the world.
It's absolutely true. And as I said, Steve, the backlash against alternative energy, I don't call it renewable, I don't call it clean, I don't call it green. The backlash against alt energy, solar, wind, batteries, high voltage transmission, it's global, it's real, and it's growing. And the latest numbers, and I have them in the Renewable Rejection Database, now 1,123 examples of rejections or restrictions globally. And here's another key number. 61 rejections or restrictions in England, Ireland, and Scotland just since January 1st of this year.
Now, does that include things like offshore wind?
Well, offshore wind figures into the mix, but what I've done, my son Michael has created we've been working on this database together along with my other son Jacob, and we've compiled them all together. So offshore wind is part of that, but a relatively small part. This is happening all over the world. It's Maine to Hawaii, England, Ireland, Australia. Australia has a new renewables rejection database. My friends at the IPA just launched that. This is my latest piece on Substack.
So why is it, explain, we've only got a minute left, explain, why is it that people don't want wind and solar?
Well, they don't want their neighborhoods to be destroyed with oceans of solar panels and 600-foot-high wind turbines. I mean, this is obvious. They want to protect the character of their neighborhoods, and they're concerned about property rights, rightly so. They're concerned about view sheds, the tourism, and they're concerned about noise. And, God bless them, they're concerned about avian wildlife. Like me, I'm an avid bird watcher.
It's such a great point that you've made. What is the name of the site that you have? What's it called again?
Well, it's on my website, robertbryce.com, the Renewable Rejection Database.
So I just flew in a month ago to Palm Springs, California, which is one of the most beautiful places on the planet. And they've got mountains, and you look at all the mountains, beautiful mountains, and all you see is windmills. I mean, my gosh, Robert, how is that green? How is that environmentalism?
It's Bryce, it's anti-green.
It sure is. Well, thank you so much for joining, Robert, and thank Bill Gates for getting the answer right on climate change. And folks, we will be right back. This is the More Money Show.
Thanks for listening to More Money with Steve Moore. You can hear More Money with Steve Moore Saturday afternoons at 1. If you like the podcast, share it with your friends and listen anytime at WABCRadio.com and download the WABC Radio app. Hit that subscribe button on all major podcast platforms. Plus, follow WABC on social on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, and X. See you next time for a new episode so you never have to wonder.
What the heck is going on here?